have you any recommendations for workers wearing bifocals requiring a sit-stand workstation?
Well, naturally, our line of sight is about 15 degrees to the horizontal. That's why we recommend that the monitor be aligned with eye height, because we have a natural tendency to look right at the center of the monitor. With people using bifocals, we actually want the monitor to be 3 centimeters below eye height, whether you're in the seated or the standing position. So keep that in mind, and that way you'll be able to look at the center of the screen.
Any other questions at all? You got 4 ergonomists and a hygienist for free access right now. Anything else coming in online from the viewers? Oh, JP has got a question. And then Jamie. Oh, guess one, Jamie.
Chelsea, I just had a question about the raising a workstation. I know I've seen some in the past where the platform for the keyboard isn't very stable, and so like I wouldn't use them. This is before I got involved with health and safety, just because they weren't. It didn't feel safe. Didn't feel like it was solid, and I was kind of having to hold the my arms up to hold the keyboard up. Has it gotten better? Or?
You're talking about the sit-stand workstations that they sell already, right? We have noticed that they are a little bit flimsy, and we actually don't recommend the keyboard tray with the slide-out platform, and that's kind of the concept that they use with the sit-stand workstations. But you wouldn't have that issue if you had like the fully height-adjustable workstation, right? And in that case, you wouldn't have to install the keyboard tray at all. But in any case, we want just a really solid platform, at least 65 centimeters in width. So this concept, you know, we would want the sit-stand workstations to have these guidelines as well. But there's unfortunately not really much we can do if they don't, aside from purchasing the proper workstation, which is the fully height adjustable ones.
No, and we'll often say this to work sites that we work with, because you got to remember, we've got almost all of Ontario represented here. When we go out to work sites, our biggest thing we say to joint health and safety committees, before you buy, call us. Let's make sure you're buying the right product up front. Nothing is more distressing to the workplace, the workers, and us. When we go into a work site, we see a company that's taken an effort to buy new equipment, but it turns out it's not right for the majority of the employees. So before you put in a large sum of money, please call us. We're there. We're a valuable resource. You know, our services are prepaid to your WSB premiums, meaning we're free. So, I mean, we're there as a huge resource and tool to assist you to make sure you're buying the right product up front.
JP had a question.
I have a question for Kevin. The subject is tinnitus or tinnitus, whichever way you want to pronounce it. We see a lot of people in our environment, of course it's the mining environment, with tinnitus. And it's normally associated with noise-induced hearing loss, but I'm not sure if there's a direct correlation between both. And if there isn't, is there one way of controlling one if that control is not for the other? In a way, if we just control for noise-induced hearing loss, loud noises, will that take care of the tinnitus? And if it doesn't, is there any other things out there to control for both?
Yeah, I guess if I can think of, I remember I used to love going to watch Status Quo. I'm showing my age, and I used to love sitting up the front. And when I listened to Status Quo with their 12-string, and my ears would be ringing all night. So I was exposed to loud noise. But my aunt also suffered from ringing in her ears, and she wasn't exposed to loud noise. Just if I can sort of share that with you. But the other thing is I was part of a research project in Australia when we were benchmarking exposures across different industries in Australia. So it's like a phone survey. And what we did find was that people that worked in noisy industries reported more that they were experiencing ringing in the ears. So ringing in the ears is a good indication that you could be exposed to loud noise.
Okay, I also have a question for Kevin. Are you aware of any research that's been, done related to possible effects of hearing caused by whole body vibration we have a lot of people in our industry that they'll wear muffs and earplugs, double hearing protection, still come out with hearing problems, but they worked on a vibrating piece of equipment for 8 to 12 hours a day.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So when we think about noise exposure, it's not standalone, and I have read that if you're exposed to whole body vibration and noise, so if you're operating an air leg driller, for example, in a sort of a small space, so not only have you got loud noise, you've also got whole body vibration. So the risk from noise exposure will be so much greater because you've also got whole body vibration as well. So there will be a compounded effect there. And I could probably look at to see if there's any research that tells us that, but from what I've read, it seems, yes, you can't really apply the same limits when you've got those other factors as well. And I just wanted to add to that, your question has actually prompted me to think of some of the things that I didn't say. So in my presentation, so I think it might be the last slide, I provided some hyperlinks. So, and I know when I looked at the list of people that are ringing in, I think there's some police departments ringing. There's a hyperlink there for, for high levels of noise, managing high levels of noise, like from gunfire. There's also a link there for, you're looking at pregnant workers and the risk to pregnant workers. And there's also a link there to chemical exposure. So there's some chemicals that actually have a synergistic effect with noise. So if you're exposed to, say, carbon monoxide, then you might not want to consider working to 85. And there are actual adjustment factors, adjustment levels based on being exposed to these chemicals. And I even think it's in the Canadian standard, they talk about, the new standard that is, they talk about certain pharmaceuticals affecting your hearing as well. So I think your question's great. It's not just 85 applies to everyone, or 80 applies to everyone. Look at them in the context of what they're doing and think about those other factors as well.
Yeah, and just to add on that, 99% of every patient we see come through our clinic with hand-arm vibration syndrome has hearing loss. Yeah.
Hi, this is the questions for Kevin again. In the railway industry, I had the opportunity to speak to some of the manufacturers of the earplugs, and I'm just wondering now which one would be you could wear longer. Like they were telling me that the little yellow ones are more foamy, they breathe more, they cause less irritation versus like the orange ones, higher decibel reduction but may cause more irritation. And have you ever seen earplugs cause irritation problems in the ear?
Not in my experience. And comfort is very important. I mean, if something's not comfortable, then it's less likely people will wear those earplugs. So they have to be comfortable. I have read that they do expire. So if you've got like a foam earplug, over time it may lose its elasticity. So I think it's probably important to just look at the expiry date and just to keep that in mind as well. It really is important to, in my mind, to test that the earplug fits properly and not just rely on someone's perception of whether they can hear noise or not. And there is a quantitative fit testing kits out there that will let you do that. I suppose if you do that periodically with even people wearing earplugs, then those sorts of things should come out.
Thank you. And I have another online question. Is there a minimal amount of sitting time in a day that you start at before going ahead and recommending a sit-stand station?
To be honest, no. It's just start with a little at a time if you're not so comfortable with the standing position. I mean, they do recommend, well, studies show that the ratio of 1-to-1 or 1-to-3 is the most beneficial, but it doesn't mean that you have to start there. So start where you're comfortable.
I think the question is asking if there's a minimal amount of time sitting where you would add in the recommendation of a sit-stand workstation. So not necessarily the ratio between sitting and standing where you have a workstation, but is there, I think that they're looking toward, and I think that you've answered it a little bit in your presentation about adjusting and moderation, but they're asking if there's a minimal amount of time sitting wherein you would recommend a sit-stand workstation.
You mean in a shift? Like if you're sitting?
If you sit for 7 hours a day, would you say someone should use a sit-stand station?
Yeah, as I mentioned for one of the last comments, there are benefits to sit-stand workstation, whether that's productivity improvements, musculoskeletal improvements, or vascular benefits. Does that mean that everybody who sits needs a sit-stand workstation? Probably not. I don't think that would be realistic as an expectation. But if you're looking into it, then I hope you definitely consult my presentation.
I was going to say, does Rosa have anything that can offer to that?
No.
Okay.
No, the kind of just to add on to that question there, it's very much dependent on the individual. There are some people who, they just can't sit for more than 15 minutes at a time, so they'd greatly benefit even if they had 1 hour at their computer in a day. So, no, it's impossible to kind of paint it with one broad stroke that says if you spend 3 hours at your computer, then you're eligible for a sit stand. It wouldn't work out that way. You'd have to kind of look at the person's their comfort levels, their physical capacity, and then see whether it's appropriate for them or not.
You can keep that mic after Melissa. Sorry. Yep.
I was just going to add, I see a lot of companies that can't necessarily afford sit-stand stations for everyone, and what they're doing is implementing 2 or 3 that people can sign in and sign out. So it's just an idea to think of that maybe that might benefit your company rather than housing everybody with sit-stand stations.
So back to Mike from Tom, your McMaster buddy. Can you speak more? Can you speak more to the Google form that you created for workplace RSI data ergo scores? Curious to how to add this to the workplace.
So if you want to just get in touch with me, Tom, through Facebook Messenger, like you were sending me messages earlier, but the Google form, I have a template for it. If you want to try and go down that road, just send me a note and I can set you up with that template.
Hi, my question's for Chelsea and Trevor. So if we purchase the sit-stand desk that is the regular standard height at 27 inches, can we put a keyboard tray underneath and that would make it fit for most of the employees?
I love that question because ultimately it almost defeats the whole purpose of getting a sit-stand workstation, to have a keyboard tray underneath it. You're better off to get the extender leg, as Chelsea was talking about, to get it down to about 24.5 inches high. This one's what, 25.5 inches high?
I think it goes down to 23.
23?
Oh, sorry, inches. Okay. 23 inches.
So you're better off, if you're going to go sit-stand station, you should do it right the first time and go all the way. Putting a keyboard tray on a sit-stand station is very much like a Band-Aid solution. Chelsea, do you want to add anything to that one?
Yeah, I agree. The role of ergonomics is always to fit, the worker. You want to make sure that the equipment fits the worker in the first place, but if you already have the sit-stand workstation and it's not in the budget to purchase different ones, it is a Band-Aid solution, absolutely. But there are worse workstations out there, so you're not doing a terrible job.
Mike, Melissa, do you want to add anything to that?
So we maybe can take one more question, but the time is running out. Lunch is available to those sitting with us today. Any one last minute question for all these experts in front of you today?
I think we have one right here for the gentleman in the beard. Right here, Kimberly.
We haven't really talked about this today, but mechanical keyboards, do you guys have any insights on comparing a mechanical keyboard to a classic rubber dome switch keyboard? Any benefits there?
That sounds like it's up your alley. It's a French thing.
Yeah.
Turn off.
That was French. Yeah. The new more like chiclet style keys, they require a lot less force. and subjectively, it's more about like the comfort levels. They've shown, the research has shown those are a little bit more comfortable, but some people do like to have that additional like tactile feedback from the more mechanical keys. So it ultimately comes down to your preference with that.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to thank my fellow presenters from the other Oak Hill clinics for coming up to Sudbury today to help us out.